Hello, welcome back to Football League World TV. It's time for the latest episode of The Debate, and here we're looking at Portsmouth and their recent slump in League One. I'm your host, George Daggers. Joining me this morning is Billy Mully. Billy, how are you?
Yeah, doing well, thank you. Looking forward to getting stuck into this one, a really sort of interesting situation and one that I think's got a more positive ending than Portsmouth fans probably think.
Yeah, we'll get to that. We'll assess Portsmouth's outlook for the rest of the season towards the end of the show. We're live for the next 15 or 20 or so minutes. We're across Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. Portsmouth fans, do get in touch. Let us know your thoughts on your recent slump in form and what's going to happen for the rest of the year. Let's get going. Billy, it probably makes sense to go right back to the start of the season, where Portsmouth actually started really well, didn't they? They're one of the early pace setters in the league, and it looked as though potentially they're going to be there or thereabouts, right at the top of the table.
Yeah, exactly that. We were speaking about Portsmouth in the same breath as Ipswich, Sheffield Wednesday, Plymouth. They're all sides impressing early on. So those three have maintained that kind of positive form, but Portsmouth, of course, have dropped away. I don't think they've been helped with sort of cancelled fixtures. The fact that they're having to play catch up sometimes is a good thing, that you can, look at the table and think if we win our games, we're going to be back in the playoffs. But ultimately, it disrupts your season. So I think that's played a little bit of a part of what's happened. But yeah, going to the start of the season, all parts were moving in the right direction. I think they recruited really well. Looking at their midfield, I know there's been a few injuries in recent weeks, but it's as good a midfield as there is in the division. You look at the forward options as well. Colby Bishop starting on fire. Dane Scarlett scoring a few goals as well. Creating chances, and of course, as I mentioned before, scoring goals. Defensively, they look resilient as well. I don't think that's changed too much. I still think they look a decent enough defensive unit as things stand. I think for me, and I'm sure we'll get onto it a little bit more, is more to do with the attacking output and create the creation of chances. I think something that they've been struggling with. But yeah, I still think that there's a lot to come from. I think going back to the start of the season, what they displayed, how they were winning games, they were edging a couple of games, but they're also showing they can win in different ways by sort of dismantling a couple of teams. So I think all in all, it was a positive start. I think that's given us a glimpse of what they can do. And I think once they get out the form they're currently in, I think that can be achievable once again.
Yeah, I mean, they started really well, but they haven't won a league game now since October. Billy, is there a particular result in the last few weeks? Obviously, we've had the brief World Cup hiatus as well, League One. But is there a result between sort of mid-October and now where you think that it's kind of been the catalyst for this slump?
It's hard to pinpoint a particular sort of moment in time, but I think there has been a couple of results that do stand out. I think their first loss of the season naturally will be one that you'll look into, which was a 3-2 defeat at Ipswich. I don't think they played particularly bad. Ipswich have been very, very good this season, played Ipswich at a difficult time, but obviously Portsmouth put in a good showing, so I don't know if you can I don't know if that was the catalyst for sort of the disappointing run of form. I think, probably speaking to most Portsmouth fans, it would be the 3-0 defeat at Charlton. I think that was a poor display. I know they have responded sort of, but I think that sort of set the pace for what we've seen in recent weeks. It was second best during the entirety of that game. But as I say, I don't know if it's a particular result that has sort of paved the way for this disappointing form. I think they've been hit with a few injuries to key personnel. And I think the fact that the season's a little bit stop-start for them as well. The fact they're still doing so well in the Cups, which again I'm sure we'll come on to. I think they've all sort of come together to really create this form and something that, as much as I think they'll get past it, it's still, disappointing to see, given how excellent they started the season.
One game that potentially has probably been arguably the worst in terms of result, at least this season, was the one on Saturday where they lost at home to MK Dons, and plenty of the Portsmouth support let the players and Danny Cowley know what they thought of the performance. If we just look at what Danny Cowley had to say after the game, he said the players were really down after and hurt by the reaction. We all were. They were hurt by the performance and the loss. In some ways, Billy, that sounds positive because you want your players to be hurting after a loss like that. With no, with all due respect to MK Dons, they're not having a great season. They're down in the bottom. Portsmouth really should have been winning that game. So fans will be happy, I suppose, in some ways that the fans were hurting, the players were hurting. You'd like to think they're going to respond, but then at the same time, given the run of form at the moment, you have to worry that potentially it could spiral even worse if the morale's quite low on the back of that result. It's all about that reaction now, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think that's when sort of the club leaders really come into the fray. I think it's going to be very, very important for your Marlon Packs, your Robertsons to really get what is quite a youthful squad together to try and galvanise the squad and ensure that no one's left behind, ensure that the mood in the camp during training is good, and just making sure that morale is high. And of course, when fans boo, it's never going to be nice, but professional athletes, they tend to respond well, and that's what I'm hoping to see from Portsmouth. As we say, there's quite a few sort of youthful members of the squad that might not have been in a setting before where things have been very, very difficult for them at sort of a senior level club. And yeah, I think it's all about this reaction. It's difficult to determine how they will respond. I guess those questions will be answered over the next few days. But I think looking at where the squad is right now, I still don't think performances have been awful. There has been a couple of occasions where they haven't met the demands of what Portsmouth fans would expect. But ultimately, I think even against MK Dons, they put in a good enough first half showing. MK Dons went up pretty much their first attack and scored, and that kind of thing happens to you when you're sort of down and low. And I think that's probably what we're seeing at the moment with Portsmouth. Of course, our fans have every right to boo. They've got every right to feel how they feel, and especially during a run of 1 win in 10 games, and it's a club full of high expectations. So yeah, it is to be expected that fans are not going to respond well to this kind of run. And I think it's more to do with the run than the actual performance. When you start the season as positively as they did, expectations get higher. And then when you have a slump like this, of course, it all comes crashing down, and it seems like the worst thing in the world. So yeah, you fully understand where fans' heads are at the moment. But ultimately, yeah, I'm still positive that things will turn around for Portsmouth.
I mean, obviously, not a good result, but they've only lost 4 games in the league so far this season. Which, if you look at the top teams, if you look at Plymouth, Ipswich, and Sheffield Wednesday, they've all lost 3 games. So Portsmouth, in many respects, at least aren't losing too many. But it is the fact that they're drawing so many in the league, isn't it? They're the joint 3rd highest in terms of draws recorded so far this season in League One. With January coming up, Billy, do you think there's a particular cause for Portsmouth to try and look at adding to their attacking options?
Yeah, I think that's going to be the main sort of message of January. I think from what I see, it's creativity. I think Dale's been fantastic. I think, of course, Ronan Curtis hasn't been as influential when he's been on the pitch. Josh Karoma's been a little bit hit and miss. He's provided some real good moments, but hasn't done that consistently enough. So I think creative options is something that Danny Cowley will be prioritising come January. Whether he might be looking now at the system that he's used. He uses that sort of 4-2-2 with wingers. I think it's seen varying levels of success. We've seen at the start of the season it really worked. Later on, it's become not as potent, and those sort of wide players haven't been as threatening as say at the start of the season. So whether he addresses the system, that's another question. But I think definitely there's cause for bolstering his creative options. I think we're seeing the impact of not having Marcus Harness now. Didn't really see it at the start of the season when they were firing and scoring goals for fun. But yeah, it seems that it's had sort of a delayed effect, and now they're starting to miss his creativity and his sort of final third contributions. And if they can find a player that can do the job Harness does, and with his versatility, I think that will be a real game changer for what this season can hold.
Um, let's try and look at some of the positives then, Billy, because it's not all doom and gloom. Portsmouth, they're only 5 points outside the playoffs, despite this slump they're on. As we've mentioned, they don't lose too many, and they haven't conceded a great amount either in the league. It's just obviously up the other end, they're not scoring as many as they perhaps like. But in the cups as well, as we've mentioned, they've been winning games, haven't they? So it's not like they're losing everything all the time. They just need to obviously translate that cup form into league form again.
Yeah, and I think a big part of this season as well is that they know that they can go on these sort of unbeaten runs. They had a 6-game winning run at the start of the season, so they know that once they do find this sort of elusive win at the moment, that they could build on that. They've got the squad, they've got the players. Of course, injuries haven't really helped in recent weeks, especially in that midfield area. Got January around the corner as well, which is a good opportunity for them to sort of address issues within the squad at the moment and sort of provide competition for those that may need it at the moment. So I think, there's definitely reasons for being optimistic. And as you say, defensive resilience hasn't really changed throughout the season. They have remained quite a tight defensive unit. So I think that's something that Cowley will be impressed by and something that will mean that he can direct his attention elsewhere. As you say as well, not losing games. It's about converting those single points into wins. And you said already, 8 draws, and I think a fair few of those could have been converted to wins should they have had the sort of necessary creative outlets to do so. So I think, there's definitely reasons to be optimistic about what this season can hold. They're definitely in that slump at the moment. When you're down and low, you know things can't get worse than they possibly are at the moment. And I think looking at the squad that they've got, looking at even in the absence of the likes of Louis Thompson and Lowry as well, they've got likes of Joe Morrell, they've got Jay Mingy, they've got loads of exciting midfielders that, if they can get back on top of the sort of confidence scales, they'll be absolutely flying. So I think there is so much to remain optimistic about. And, being a football fan, what it's like to lose a few games consecutively. It feels like your world's crashing down, but ultimately there's a lot to look forward to about what sort of remains of this season.
And one other thing that we should mention is the fact that they've played fewer games than everyone else in the league, haven't they? And we sort of touched on it earlier. Some of the fixtures that they had to miss. They've only played 19 games so far this year, when a lot of the sides are played as many as 22, and plenty of those sides are above them as well. So you'd always rather the points on the board, but Billy, they've got an opportunity there to win those games and get right back in the mix for the top 6.
Yeah, and especially what I said before, the fact that, if they do win one of those games, then they've got a real good opportunity to build on that. I think they're a team that are built on confidence. They're a really exciting side at times. I think that's what you come to expect with a squad with sort of youthful players playing sort of integral roles. I think once confidence levels are high, they'll be able to really benefit off that and put a run of results together, which is what they need to do to get back into the top 6 conversation. And, we've seen in recent weeks as well that the Plymouth, Ipswich, Sheffield Wednesday have dropped a fair few points to that sort of top 3 gunning for automatic promotion. He's not as solidified and cemented as it once was. So, I think at the moment, they'll remain positive about what could happen. I don't think I have any doubts about Danny Cowley being the right man to lead this sort of promotion charge. Should they win this sort of first game in hand they have, then I'm sure they can build on it. I think they'll probably be wanting these sort of games in hand to come after January, once they've got their rest of their squad together. Once they've welcomed the likes of Lowry and potentially Thompson back into the side as well. So as I say, I think the message of this is that things do look brighter. Of course, you're the Portsmouth are in a slump at the moment, but that doesn't mean it's going to continue that way.
And let's just look at their festive fixture list as well. Portsmouth, they've got a trip to Exeter on Boxing Day before a home game against Ipswich on the 29th, and then New Year's Day sees them host Charlton. So, opportunity there, Billy, to get some wins on the board and make a statement, obviously, against Ipswich. I mean, looking at the Exeter game, first of all, that they're a side that scores goals but also concedes a lot of goals too. So Portsmouth potentially will get chances there. We know how well Ipswich are playing, but Portsmouth at home it's an opportunity to try and make a statement against one of the leading lights in the league. And then obviously Charlton, you never know what you're going to get with the Addicts at the moment. Obviously, new manager coming in there that they might have picked up by the time the new year rolls around, but at the same time they could still be wobbling. So there's opportunities, isn't there, for Portsmouth to start making amends?
Yeah, as you say, they're tough games, but you look at them all and you do, you don't write them off at all, because Exeter, as you say, they've scored a lot of goals. They do concede a lot of goals. They've proven to be quite good at home this season, but they've also, they've been beaten a fair few times at home. So there's definitely opportunity for Portsmouth to go there, and with their sort of aforementioned defensive resilience, I think that you've got to back them to do well and to shut them out. And then it's about what they can do in the attacking third. And, I mentioned before, Owen Dale for me is standing out at the moment as somebody that can unlock defences. Colby Bishop as well, 9 goals in 19 League One games this season. So he's still, somebody that's sort of consistently been in and around the goals. So, yeah, I think they've definitely got what it takes to secure a victory at Exeter. Going on to Ipswich, I think they would have been disheartened with the way that the game panned out earlier in the season at Portman Road. They lost 3-2 and should have really got a draw at least. I think they put in a really strong performance there, and not many teams go to Ipswich and do what they did. So I think that will provide them with that little bit more motivation to go there and get a result. And as I mentioned just before, Ipswich haven't been as dominant as they have been during the sort of earlier parts of the season. I think 2 wins in their last 6. And then, yeah, as you say, Charlton, you just can't expect, you can't really know what to expect from Charlton at the moment. Of course, they'll be under new management by the time that that game comes around. So, yeah, it's how they respond to that. We saw last year the new manager bounce was ever present. Don't really know this season if that's going to be the case. But, yeah, Charlton, of course, they're a little bit like Portsmouth in the fact that they've got a squad that doesn't really justify where they are in the league. They should be a lot higher with the personnel that they've got available to them. But there are 2 clubs I expect to see jump back up the table, but I think it's going to be a longer process for Charlton. So I think that's where Portsmouth should be able to capitalise.
Okay, let's get to our conclusion. So, Billy, throughout the show, really, you've hinted that you're still feeling relatively positive about Pompey's chances for the rest of the season. So how do you see it going in the second half of the year for them?
Yes, as I said before, I think January will be big for them. I don't think they need wholesale changes. I don't think they need a complete chopping and changing of the squad. I think Cowley just needs a couple of individuals maybe to come in and bolster competition levels in certain positions. Of course, I think Thompson coming back, should he be back relatively soon, and Lowry as well. Having those 2 back in the midfield should be a big help. But yeah, I think once they secure that first win, once they show that form and put in a positive display, I think that could be the catalyst for positivity for the rest of the season. Mentioned they've got a lot of young players in the squad, either on loan or progressing through the ranks at sort of an exciting pace. I think once the mood around the camp is good again, I think the younger players will sort of take Portsmouth to a new level again. And I think, as I mentioned before, they've got the personnel within the squad to have a really exciting season. The performances haven't been all bad during this sort of difficult run. So I think, yeah, good times are around the corner for Portsmouth.
Good stuff. We shall see what happens at Pompey in 2023, whether they can achieve that elusive promotion back to the Championship at last or not. We will see what happens in the weeks and months ahead. That's it for the debate on Football League World TV for today, and that's it for the shows on Football League World TV for today as well. Billy, thanks for joining me this morning. Great to get your thoughts on all things Portsmouth. And just before we go, there's just time to ask you to subscribe to the YouTube channel and give this video a like as well if you can. It's Football League World TV. Thanks for joining us, and we'll speak to you soon.